Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you to Benj for inviting me. Thank you for Dustin for having Benj, and for truly demonstrating what it means to plant seeds and to see them grow and to see all of this happen. It's terrific. As much as I'm heartbroken not to have attended a session on whiteboards for Arabic language, it was wonderful to hear Benj talk, and I got it all on my smart pen, so that was great. Such a convergence this conference is. It's so terrific to actually have a conference that's sort of come around to the stuff I've been studying for over 20 years, and to have such history in one place. So it's a great honor to be here at the inaugural and hopefully the first of many conferences here. All right, so the Children's eBook Revisited. Let's start with an eBook, shall we? So what I'm going to do here is show you a couple of these, a couple eBooks, do some reading. This is The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Loud Crow Interactive in Canada. And you see this has the progressive page turn idea. I can jump to any page I want with the table of contents by pulling down. And I can hear a word.
Rabbits, Flopsy, Peter, there, mother, in, bank.
There's some dynamic features. If I tilt the iPad to the left or right, the accelerometers in the device pick it up. And I could also arrange the leaves and throw them onto the page. I believe it's important to make a mess. There's also this metaphor of a pop-up book. And if I want to hear the whole thing in context...
Now, my dears, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden.
Pretty cool, eh? Whenever you see something with a hinge on it, I can actually get inside and fool around with the main part of the story. And I'll argue that this is good because the actual animation or the stuff that's engaging here is related to the storyline. And I call that an embedded reinforcement. It's not just thrown in there for fun. It actually, I'm sort of active in helping to straighten up Peter's collar there. So we could obviously play with this all day. Oh boy, there's so much to see. And I determined that the success of my talk today is how many things I can show you. So I'm just going to throw stuff at you. This is called Nash Smasher. This is by Crab Hill Press. And this uses that pull tab metaphor to pull me right into the story. And there's also things I can do. And I can undo anything I do. Really interesting concept. We call that reversibility. Text doesn't do anything here. And this is a story about a little boy that gets into trouble. Now, I know that's not something that any of you would know anything about. And he goes to his friend's house, and he just breaks everything. He's a troublemaker. What's cool is you can unbreak him. Oops. Make everybody happy again. See the pile of blocks? They all look nice. I'm knocking them down. Or I can put them back. So one of the questions we always want to ask is, what does this do that you can't do with a traditional printed book? What's the payoff? And the idea that you can undo what you just do, I think that's pretty cool. He's a real nasty kid. He goes around and he just breaks stuff and smashes them and laughs about it. And that's bad. And here I can play with the water. Also kind of like the fact that, listen right now, there's nothing. So there's a white space, and few publishers have figured that out, as funny as that is. Did you know white space and no sound is really cheap? You don't have to hire any narrators, don't need any animators. But it's one of the largest ingredients of a magical experience is it just sits there and waits. It just waits for you to do this. There's just fun things to discover. And that to me is a sign of a lot of ways I can go around and break things that way. All right. I'm going to switch back to my presentation and get started the way I'm supposed to. So I'm Warren Buckleitner. It's great to be here. I already said that. I used to be an elementary teacher. That's my first class. You can see me in there. I'm all excited and fired up and ready to change the world. And I got my rear end kicked that first year by that kid, and that kid. But it was fun. I did a dissertation on the relationship between software design and children's engagement. And I'd love to talk about that at the next conference next year. But isn't that cool that title and the world kind of came back to me. I'm very excited. And I write for the Times. I always say to doctoral students that when I wrote this, I wrote 1 million hours for 5 people. And when I write this, I write 5 hours for 1 million people. Another little tip here for those of you that have done dissertations is that if you have any personal information like your PINs and passwords, actually make a table in your dissertation. Put them all in there, all your personal items, your social security numbers, passport numbers, because no one will ever find it. It's the safest place on earth. Isn't that true? That's true, isn't it? And I'm editor of Children's Technology Review, which is actually an outgrowth of my master's project at High Scope Foundation in the 80s, where I was determined to survey every conceivable piece of interactive media software on floppy disks. And that became sort of this obsession. It's not healthy. And I knew it was a problem when the Strong Museum of Play came. And they took away all of my stuff, and they said there were like 12,000 discs. And so the good news there is that you can go to the Strong Museum of Play and you can go through the library and you can find all these CDs. So just like Benj was saying, that we can take these ideas. There was a lot of great work that was done in the 80s and 90s from companies like MEC and the Learning Company and so on that sort of became amberized in platform. And it'd be great to sort of pull that into the new media. So I'm a parent, and that probably is the most formative experience that any adult human can have about learning about child development. I have 2 daughters, and my wife there, and I experiment with all sorts of behavioral strategies to keep them engaged, such as dressing, following their leads. They grew up, and just to prove you, I live with a 15-year-old. That's my sink, where I shave and brush my teeth in the morning, and that's my sink after my 15-year-old daughter has used it. So you can see the difference. That's dad, that's daughter. The world's not perfect. So the agenda today, 3 things. What is an ebook? And how do you find out what an ebook is? So I want to just unpackage a little bit the definition of an ebook. Secondly, attributes of quality. What makes a good ebook? And Jeremy is going to talk. Jeremy, where are you? Jeremy, and you've volunteered, you're going to pipe in here and help me with this session. But you're going to do a session tomorrow on ebooks and ebook evaluation. Also, Tammy, where's Tammy? Talked about Kindles yesterday. So I'm hoping you guys will help me along as we go here too. So there's other stuff going on here. And then the third thing is examples of Duster Magic. And as you know, I have a conference called that. I'm going to rename it Dustin Magic, I think is a good idea. All right. So what is an ebook is the first question. Just letting it sink in. Once upon a time, ebooks came on shiny CD-ROMs. Educators were excited, like me. For the first time, you could click on a word and hear it read aloud. This could just blow open the whole world of phonemic awareness and letter recognition, and kids could just sort of accidentally discover how to read. The Living Books was the major brand at the time. Mark Schlichting was the lead designer, and he was really pushing the state of the art. So my question to you is, how do you define an ebook? So let's start with that. And would you turn, or just the people at your table, do a quick 3-minute brainstorm on that question. How do you define an ebook? Go ahead. That's a sign that we're going to stop. This is all I could pack in my suitcase. We'll get to that. So how did you define an ebook? Go, shout it out. Oh, yeah, that's good. What I'm hoping you came across is that nobody knows what the heck anyone's talking about with this thing, right? Can I agree with that? It's like you're kind of, it's one of those questions that has no answer. And I meant to do that, of course. So now, one of the ways to attack this question is different. I'm going to give you some tools, all right? How would each of these people see this question? And that's a great way to look at it. So Piaget would say, I see an ebook or interactive media as a way for a child to construct. And he would probably be an advocate for things like Toontastic, where a child can make their own puppet shows and so on. B.F. Skinner, on the other hand, would be looking at measurable results, mastery learning, and things like that. Montessori would have strong opinions, as would Vygotsky, and it's fun to put other personalities up here and ask that question. But my point is, your own personal theoretical framework, not mine, it will determine how you define that question. So back when I was in my doctoral program, I did a paper on technology and literacy. And I was saying, this is why this conference is my conference. I just love this topic. And I like to say with pride, I was born the year that B.F. Skinner announced his teaching machine. And he was basically trying to package mastery learning. And that was 1958. And so about halfway through my life, and that's me down in the bottom with the Commodore PET, I was about 20, 21, and I was really excited about Mindstorms and Logo and so on. And, of course, in the 60s, all of this amazing stuff was going on with CAI, which Benj was talking about. And then things just started to explode. And when the iPad came along, it really sort of was this convergence. What an incredible time and how fortunate it is, in a way, it is to be alive to see this, because there will be no other time in history that this is going to happen. Of course, the downside to that is it's nauseatingly frustrating, right? I mean, to think the stories that you know from the CD platter that Philips came out and saying, we're going to invest in that, and the cost and so on. So let's just take a closer look at some of these things. In 1998, the state of the art, to deliver experiences to a child's classroom, you had to do all this wiring. Then, like in 2008, I got that 32 gigabytes on one SD card. And that, to me, right there is just one of the more mind-blowing ideas, that in the palm of your hand, you can have all of that content. And, of course, the iPad came along. Children's ebooks, and however you define it, have always had this chicken-egg relationship with hardware. And that's why Moore's Law is another one of the constants to think about. Technology will always change, it'll always get better. So if you look at the technology, it helps you connect the dots. So that's an important piece. So we're no longer going to have to deal with these. Isn't that a good thing? I want to get a bumper sticker that says, I survived Windows 3.1, because to me, I think that one just about killed me. And I did figure out how computers actually work. Did you know that inside the PC there's a slave? See it? I thought it was something Intel was doing, but there's actually a slave in there. It's amazing. Thinner, this is the headlines this morning on my news. Thinner, lighter, faster. I thought they were talking about me. Because, again, I have cameras too, see? Thinner, lighter, faster with cameras. No, it's the iPad 2. But what the iPad represents, and I don't call it the iPad as much as the iPad effect. Because Apple, when a lot of people, when Steve Jobs stood up with the iPad a year ago, a lot of people doubted it. Remember people laughing about the name? They thought, do you remember? I mean, look back. A lot of people are saying that is the most stupid idea. There's netbooks. Microsoft tried the tablet. Are they laughing now? That's because of four things. The four pillars of the device. It's not Apple. Apple was the first to climb the mountain and stick their flag in it. They had the vision. They pulled it off. Now the competitors will start. But it's the four things. It's multi-touch. And it's multi-touch on a screen big enough to match a child's explorations. 10-hour batteries. So now a child, you don't have to think about plugging in. Your child can stick in their backpack. It'll probably come home with a charge on it. That's also about the time, that's 2 cross-country flights, running movies the entire time. That's a drive from New Jersey to Michigan. A lot of happy things. They nailed it with the batteries. It has internet connection, so it's a portal to everything. So you can watch, if you can get internet, you can get YouTube, you can get any video on any subject. And there's an army of programmers supporting it. And some of these programmers are in garages, and some of these programs are Random House and Scholastic. And so there's a lot of people in the App Store concept have made content for this platform. This is nothing but metal and glass unless it has content behind it. So this delivery system has happened. I asked Ann McCormick, who started the Learning Company, with $1,000 on an Apple IIe. I asked her, so what do you think about the iPad? And she just lit up, and she held hers up, and she said, this is the computer we always dreamed of. It can deliver everything. And if you don't believe me, Steve Jobs has more money than Bill Gates. So it's starting to happen. And the reason it happened was because of ease of use. Another way to look at this question, ebooks, is what isn't an ebook? It's a great strategy if you ever come into something. Don't try to look at the light, look at the shadows. So what isn't an ebook? This is actually my daughter's bookshelf. And these are some of the books she's interested in. And I can tell you with a great deal of confidence, based on a sample of 2, that printed books are in no danger. Matter of fact, I'm sick and tired of spending so bloody much money going to our local bookstore because my daughters they don't know that you can borrow things at the library. You have to buy them, otherwise you don't own it. And I said, well, what happens if, well, I want my own book, I want my own copy, because Jenna's eyes will burn the words if she reads them. So anyway, we have 2 copies of some books. Yeah, books are not going away. We know that. So here's the whole thing. And you can go home. This is my whole shot right here. This is it, okay? So pay attention. Turn off that internet and stop your tweeting. There's a continuum here that goes from less interactive to more interactive. It's a good way to get your head around this. And I just as soon throw the whole thing, all these terms out like ebooks, and just call it interactive media. So it's a lot of ways to think of that. It's like television movies is linear, non-interactive. It doesn't care if you're in the room. Interactive media, or non-linear, there's a lot of words the industry has come up with, cares if you're in the room because it sits there forever. It waits. Smasher, the book I just read, it'll sit there on page 11 forever unless I spin the dial and turn the page. So there's this continuum of less interactive to more interactive. Less interactive is like the PDF. And that's an ebook system because it's electronic and you can deliver all sorts of print with a PDF. And some, I've actually seen commercial apps that sort of digitize pages. They're just JPEGs of pictures. And that's an ebook versus more interactivity. And on the end is the Nintendo 3DS and Kinect. So those are some of the most important. So at the bottom, think of an ebook as a messy continuum between less and more interactive. Okay? And it's messy. Deal with it. I'm sorry. It's going to be messier too in March 27th and March 11th. The 11th is when the iPad 2 comes out. March 27th is when the Nintendo 3DS comes out. Also, start to think of every book as a script. When J.K. Rowling sat down, think about her condition. She's single mom, penniless. She's sitting in a cafe writing these words that would become multi-billion-dollar words. It's the most amazing story in the history of publishing. She wasn't writing a film. She wasn't writing a set of action figures from Mattel. She wasn't writing a video game that published by Warner Brothers. She didn't think she was. But every book is a script. Everything. So instead of thinking of this just as a book, it's a script for a lot of different things. When Pixar makes a movie now, they think about the theme park that they're going to make, the theme park ride they're going to make. The constants, Moore's Law, let's review, your theoretical framework, child reality, watch kids, live with them, see what they do, and then mix these with your overarching knowledge of the culture of business. These will help you understand what an ebook is. Children's e-readers, so that would be sort of on the less interactive end of the continuum. There are a lot of them, so let's cover a few of what those are. They are non-interactive technology-enhanced presentations of children's story. And by the way, this is all in our last issue. And the password is I am Sam. 6 characters, I am Sam. If you go to childrenstech.com and log in with that, you can download a PDF of this whole article. I am Sam, because it's Dr. Seuss's birthday this month, I think. Some factors to look for: font control, shape, color, size, which is great. You can adjust, if you have problems reading or seeing the screen, you can make the screen bigger. Navigation controls, page swiping, screen rotation. These would all be in a Kindle. Decoding helpers, narration, word highlighting, language toggling, very minimal frosting, and cheaper to produce and publish. The Kindle is to the left, the Nook Kids is on the right, and the Sony Reader Pocket Edition makes these very easy to get books and spend a lot of money because you can get them. You want something, you can just click and you've got it. You've spent the money. These are one-trick ponies for reading, a lot of them, and these will never go away, and there's sort of a book-centric perspective. Here's one right here. This is How to Train Your Dragon. And let's have a look and see this storybook.
The Vikings of Burke Island were used to nightly attacks of flaming fireballs. After all, they'd been fighting dragons for 7 generations. One teenager, Hiccup, wasn't a typical Viking. Where most were brawny, Hiccup was brainy.
So you can see that at any point here, I can just flip through this storybook and easily go back.
Hiccup. As the dragons rampaged through the village, Hiccup carefully...
And this highlighting of the text is a good language experience, and also the quality of the graphics here, as you can see, are terrific. They're also well selected. They highlight, if you've seen the movie, you'll recognize all of the key points. They actually made this before the movie released by taking the actual content. Because it's a digital movie, the CGI movies are all digital. No trees were killed in the making of these. They just shipped over the data, downloaded it to the book publisher, and put out a book the day the film launched. So it's a lot easier to make sort of an ebook that's compatible. This is one on the DS. And this is a nice quiet book. So I can flip pages. And if I hold the cursor down, I can flip really fast. It's kind of a neat metaphor. There's all these metaphors for turning pages, which is fun. It's kind of like when I take a picture with my camera. This is a 14 megapixel Sony Wonder, right? So I'm going to take your picture. And for some reason, Sony had to have that sound. You know, it's just reassuring. That's fake. That's nothing. It makes us feel good because we're old. So there's a lot of that you see. It's funny to see this stuff. Other things beyond the tablet. The Leapfrog tag reading system is very important to think about because of the infrared scanner that's in the tip of this pen. You can touch any word on printed paper, printed media, and that includes a chart on the classroom wall. You can touch it and hear it read aloud. Theoretically, you can do language toggling with it. So a child who is English is not their first language could touch and hear is a scaffold. So there's a lot of things that the tag has proven on the wars of retail that it's viable. Down below there's the VTech InnoPad that's coming out this fall. And then on the right is the LeapPad Explorer. They're both new tablets. They're coming this fall. They were shown at Toy Fair. And they're basically tablets, $80. The one on the right, the LeapPad product, has a camera and a microphone. So both of those can record audio, so that these are, if you don't want to give your iPad to your kid, you can give them that. Point is, this whole eBook thing, I told you it was sloppy. I told you. I'm really excited about Android and Honeycomb because it represents a healthy dose of competition. I do believe that Apple is so far ahead that it's going to be tough. There's so many apps that you can find. I don't look at this space from a commercial perspective or a business perspective. I look at it from a developmental view through the eyes of a child. The child doesn't care. They don't know what a billionaire is. They don't care, who's richer than who, and they just want to play. And so our goal as educators is to put the best quality, developmentally appropriate stuff in front of their busy hands and their active mind. That's what our job is. And so there's really exciting stuff. The Android idea, the Motorola Xoom XOOM, is probably one of the more viable competitors to the iPad right now. And then the Samsung Galaxy Tab is another one to watch. And I like the size of it. It's smaller. It's about half the size of an iPad, but there's a lot you can do with it. And of course, you shouldn't dismiss the iPod Touch or the iPhone. And one of the things I'm telling parents right now in schools who have zero money is, hey, guess what? The iPhone 4 just came out. What's everyone going to do with their iPhone 3s? This is a multi-touch screen. Get it. Have them donate it. Wipe it clean and load it up with apps and give it to kids. So there's going to be a lot of there's 3 generations of iPod Touches before the iPod Touch 4. People are giving them away. So multi-touch, any way you can get it to the kids is going to be good for them. All right. And I had a preview of the Nintendo 3DS last week, and I was very excited about it. And what I realized, the 3DS is same size as this right here. This is a regular DS. And so it looks exactly the same, except the top screen is the size of an iPhone screen. So if you took an iPhone and you basically duct taped it onto there, that's what you'd have. But what's interesting is this is a 3D screen. And it looks like you've all seen 3D cards where you kind of, you turn it. And this is weird because it's actually 800 pixels. 400 are given to each eyeball. And it really looks like you're looking in a little puddle of water when you look at this thing. And until you've seen it, and you'll see it in a couple weeks, and there's a warning that should be issued with this, a very important warning. And the warning is that once your child sees one, you'll have to spend $250 because that's how much they cost. That's the warning. I'm not worried about the eyesight thing with it. There's a slider. You can slide it down. You can adjust because it's all digital, the 3D incrementally. If you're worried about the whole health of the eye thing that's in the news, you can lock it behind a pin, so you can turn that feature off. The games still work, everything. It's just frosting. But what this thing does that's so interesting is the virtual reality, or an augmented reality. This is an augmented reality pipeline. So let's pretend this is a 3DS. There's 2 cameras. They're binocular cameras. So it can take 3D pictures as well. This is the first affordable consumer level 3D camera that I can hand a child. So this is a submarine game. The submarine, I'm going to shoot these submarines. It's like Battleship, the game Battleship. And in order to shoot the submarines, this has a gyroscope, which, by the way, the new iPad has a gyroscope now too. You should make note of that. So I can actually turn and see. So I see an ocean out there with ships, and shoulder, fire. Yes! Took out that, over there. And it's great. It works really well if you have a swiveling office chair. Behind you. So you understand that computing is becoming, whether or not you like it or want to deal with it or whatever, it's becoming immersive in whole body. These devices know they're not just watching you like Kinect, but they know what you're doing. The NGP, Sony's response to this, they put multi-touch on a front multi-touch screen on their next PSP Go, and they put one on the back. They put 2 multi-touch surfaces, so you can grip it with your hand, which is a very interesting idea. And I'm dying to see how they implement that. So what these are, folks, all these new pipelines, multi-touch from Apple and 3D from Nintendo and whole body from Microsoft, they're new pipelines to reach kids. New pipelines to reach kids. That's my Me that you make as a Me maker, and then you can send it to your Wii. I'm speaking English. It's okay. Speaking English. And so there's the warning. Once your child gazes into the 3DS screen, she's going to want one. So look out. At least Nintendo hopes. Here's augmented reality in a book form, and in a form you'll understand. You buy a book from Random House. It's called The Search for Wandala. So I hold the book up and I see see that little picture in the book? It's printed there. That's a trigger to your webcam to start an interactive event on the computer, which I now control with the actual book. So there's an ebook for you. I mean, it's a regular old hardcover book, and you hold it up, and there's a map that you use inside the book. So printers, and there's no dots, there's no magnets, it's just ink. It's the image that's seen. There's also now a whole series of baseball cards. This is a French company called Instant Immersion that uses Topps baseball cards. So you can hold up Jeter. Don't tell the New York people, okay? It's like and you can hold that up, and he jumps out on the screen and does a few batting swings, and statistics come up and all that. So that's pretty cool. All right, so here's a Kinect, and you know how kids like to move? Have you ever noticed that? Little kids like to move around. So wouldn't it be cool is if you could use their feet, and that's called gross motor, and kids love it. But this is the one activity I saw that I was showing Marilyn. You do a maze by moving your hands. So I have to get that down there, so you move it down there. So the Kinect cameras are actually watching what you're doing. This is called the mind-body connection from Namco, this game. If you have a Kinect at home, you can go out and buy this game tomorrow and go home and use it. And I challenge you, all you guys from the 60s who are really thinking about CAI, I mean, I'd love for you to look at the assessment behind this, because they measure really carefully your progress. So, you remember these? This is the actual picture of the Encyclopedia Britannica that's actually it's from Wikipedia. Sorry. But hasn't it been fascinating to watch how the encyclopedia business has been dealing with this change? If you think you got it tough? Do you remember in the 80s and 90s how everyone was coming out with CD-ROM versions of books, of references, and that was the future? Compton's, and at one point there were 8 of them, and we did a roundup and we compared and we looked up, like one thing in each one and counted the words and saw how accurate they were. Really exciting because, I mean, imagine a book that you could instantly find everything, just type a keyword and boom, you find it. The advantages were huge. The paper products were crushed. References were just like the sales dropped and everyone was buying these CD-ROMs. And one company came and looted all the intellectual property from the other ones, Microsoft, and they hired the president of, I could be wrong, I think World Book. He happened to be a judge with me in a contest, so I was very interested in the politics of how this worked. So they dominated, and Carter squished them all. So it's fun to now go in and look up Wikipedia in Britannica and say, how does Britannica define Wikipedia? It defines it as, although some highly publicized problems have called attention to Wikipedia's editorial process, they have done little to dampen public use of the resource, which is one of the most visited sites on the internet. It's open source. Wikipedia says, if you look up Britannica in Wikipedia, it says Britannica has difficulty remaining profitable. Some articles in early editions have been criticized for inaccuracy, bias, unqualified contributors. So it's fun. You look up the thing in the other thing. Criticism and challenge by Britannica's management. But the funny thing about Britannica, over on the left side, right under the first 100 words, activate free trial. 7 days free, credit card required. If you want to continue reading, only $1.99 per week. Risk-free. So, clearly there are some major issues here in the references side. And the funnier one thing is, look up the word Wikipedia in Encarta, the one that squished them all. And you get this. They don't think it exists. And what's even more interesting is what does come up is wig maker. Oh, there's a 21st century word. So times are changing. All right. Another key to get your head around this is to look at a lot of kinds of interactive media products. And that's what we're going to do right now is we're going to start looking at some ebooks. Construct your own version of Dust or Magic and observe real children. So I went on to YouTube. These are all from YouTube. And just type iPad and baby, and you can find these same things. And all these are posted by parents, so there's no human subjects. You don't have to get any of that research stuff. It's actually, if you're doing research, YouTube is a phenomenal place of ethnographic observations. This is called whole body computing. Basically, you just press your body against the multi-touch screen. The chest is capacitive, so it actually works as an input device. And the funny thing is, I did this taxonomy of touch, and I was thinking that there's no way on earth I could find a kid who's actually mouthed an iPad or an iPhone. Wrong. It's all over the place because developmentally, what do kids want to do? That's how they see the world. So they went in and there you got it, mouthing. And there's actually a video of a baby chimp, and the chimp person is going, "I've never seen a baby do that before." It is quite phenomenal. So this thing is really powerful.
I just never saw anything like that.
All right, so all of these things, this taxonomy of touch, what I try to do with this is kind of how Piaget would see this. And kids start by pushing and jabbing the screen. Pre-operational kids see this surface as they can start to pinch and pull in. They see the world. This whole thing falls into place if you view it developmentally. So it's a great thing to do. When Beatrix Potter wrote and illustrated The Tale of Peter Rabbit, she insisted upon using color illustrations, pushing the limits of the current technology and costing her publisher a lot of money. Today, if you could read this, future Beatrix Potters are working on the next generation of children's storytelling, and they're using, you can bet, the latest technology. Things are only going to get more interesting when the next wave of Android-based tablets and all of their apps start to catch up with Apple. Now, let's talk a little bit about ways, some of the cool ways, some of the magic, ways that people are extending this medium, and look at some samples. We, right now, are at 15 minutes to noon, and then we have lunch. And I've never been one to get between food. And so I'm going to do what I can to fit everything into this next 15 minutes and leave you with some samples here. And then know that these scaffolding techniques are available in the article, so you can have a look at that. Sebastian's Tale is a really interesting app from New Zealand. The reason I'm really excited to have Marilyn look at this is because it uses this idea that the more you want to hear a word, the harder you press it. So it's like an elevator button. Did you know that the harder you press an elevator button, the faster the elevator comes? It's true. And it's true here. Now, I touch the word, and you hear it read aloud.
The moment misses.
Pretty cool, huh? The way those hop up. You can touch each word, and you can hear it read aloud. That's cool. But what's even better
The
is you
moment
can
Mrs.
swipe over a
Williams
sentence
down the duster,
and hear it
Sebastian
read
scampered
fluently in
into,
the context of the sentence.
into
That's very
the
difficult to
room.
do. And then for a final
Scampered.
trick, you can hold down over a word
S-C-A-M-P-E-R-E-D.
and hear it spelled out. All in all, you could sit there all day and just play with those words and sort of make them dance. And you can also record your own voice, which I'm doing
Williams
here.
Put down the duster, Sebastian scampered into the room.
And then hear it, if you have an iPhone, not an iPod Touch.
Scampered into
That's my recorded voice. Is that sweet? That right there is some pretty cool technology. Why didn't it come from the United States of America? All right, so other story extensions, assessment, Benj was talking a little bit about ways we could track what a child does. You can actually map every finger press that happens. Common multi-touch experiences, just a little sugar helps the medicine go down. Hot spots, swipes, hunt and find, tilting, motion-based mechanisms for inputting, mechanical metaphors such as pull tabs, pinch and spread, painting, coloring, or uncoloring is used a lot, to name a few. So that's why, when I did that dissertation, I am so excited right now. There's a formula I made up, E equals SF squared. Engagement of the child equals the story's developmental match with the child's abilities and prior experiences with F, features, or frosting. So if you make a good developmental match, you put the right features and frosting, engagement will increase. I have no idea if this is true, and I don't really care. I just think it's cool, and it sounds like E equals MC squared. So I'll let you work with that. But I do have a formal evaluation system, and this came from high school back in 1980. So I did a lot of work looking at interactive media back then. It comes down to 6 things: ease of use, educational value, which is these are all big sloppy, constructs. Entertainment value, again, big sloppy construct. I mean, what's fun to you is probably not fun to me, or vice versa, hard to say. Features and value. All right, that looks interesting, but I'll never remember that. But I have some help. Okay? What I want you to do is get a pen out and write these things out on your hand. The thumb is easy to use. Do you like that? Is that good? Educational, entertaining, features, and value. So if you got all those things, then you grab it. It's good. All right? And it's sort of that balance, and it runs across all sorts of interactive media. Education, of course, you put different rubrics for each definition. So like if you're looking at an art program, for example, you look at a whole different set of features. And also, if you want to be a good rater of software, you got to look at a lot of products. Common mistakes. Start with a bad story. You don't make good salad with soggy lettuce. You don't make a good ebook with a bad story. Bad sound. It's amateur hour in a lot of things I look at. And bad graphics. Interaction. Assuming children want to save their drawings and then sending you to Facebook. What's that about? Lagging. Not letting you turn pages quickly. That's really a problem in a lot of these experiences. Starting with a 3-ring circus on the first screen. Poor localization. Freezes and crashes, as you saw. No control over background music. Unethical behavior. Mixes selling with informing. Contains links to external websites that takes the child to who knows where. Navigation problems. You don't know how to get to the last page quickly. So there's a lot of problems. Some of them feel too springy. And so this is clearly a developing medium. Just because a product isn't interactive, and we have to remember this, doesn't mean it's bad. So when you rate an interactive product, just because it's not interactive doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. And that's been the secret with Ocean House Media. Interactivity is like salt on an expensive steak. Use it carefully. All right, so let's look at some examples. This is American Museum of Natural History. And this is just a cool menu, isn't it? You're going, why, Warren? Is that a cool menu? It's cool because I just pull in. And I love source data. I love real source data. So what they've done is they've just taken 200 or 500 or 600 real pictures from their museum archives, and it's boring as paint drying, but it's real. And it might be boring to me, but not boring to you. So I can get more information. I can make comments, and these are real comments about the picture that people have left. And it's a great way to accompany a visit to the museum. What a cool metaphor. What a cool menu. That's that one. Let me show you some bad stuff. See this a lot. So I can just pinch through or move through here.
Finja. Bow bow.
Now we probably could have done people a little better on the voice quality there.
Bow bow. Najib. Bow bow. Bow bow.
I'm not quite sure if the Israeli soldiers really said
Bow bow.
but maybe that's true. Oh, there's so many examples. I'm going to use you guys as therapy. I got to look at this. It's my job. Here's the 3 little pigs. That's kind of fun. It's kind of fun the first time. Oh, a little bit of variety there. Wonder what this one's going to do. That's it? All right. Kind of low budget. Let's take it up a notch. And this is So What, a French company spelled O-U-A-T. And anyone with a company named that had to make a phonics-based product. So this is cool. It gives me white space.
The second little pig who the second little pig who was a little less lazy decided to build his house out of sticks. He went into the woods and collected lots of sticks.
Did you want French, anybody? So on-the-fly translation.
Le second petit choisit.
Ooh, that's a word to take home tonight.
Choisit.
Choisit.
Construire.
Construire.
Sienne. Tout.
So, you can get smart and sound like a cool person with this. And there's vowels. There's all your silent letters. There's all your syllables. On the fly, real time. Right there at your
Branche.
fingers. This little finger I have just got really powerful. Isn't that neat?
Le troisième petit cochon, bien plus travailleur et malin que les
So when someone
autres,
says,
décida de
why
construire sa
spend
maison avec des
$500 on
briques.
this thing? Well, that's a reason. And I wanted you to see Dr. Pete's
Welcome to
talk
Dr.
writer.
Pete's Writing Buddy.
This is a talking word processor. So basically,
Space.
I can type anything. So tell me what
New line.
what to write. Like maybe it.
Capital T. Space. Unit.
Okay. Oh, you to it. All right. Let's try it again.
I. T. Space. It. I. S. Space is T. I. M. E.
Space.
Space. Time. F. O. R. Space. For. L. U. N. C. H. Space. Lunch. New line. Period. Warren is happy to see the mountains of Utah. It is time for lunch.
I typed that earlier. And you can put in corrections too. So
New line.
kids can start correcting. And this, of course, is from OK Moore's idea, that a talking typewriter. I've got a talking typewriter now. That dream can come true. All right. We are out of time, out of space. But golly. By the way, I've got folders here on the bottom. These folders are great for organizing your apps. And I'll have these with me so you can, so you feel free to grab my iPad and play with this. This is called Bob Books.
Lad.
Another one I'm excited with this idea of constructing meaning.
Ooh. Ah. 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 D. D.
Gives temporal control to the child and puts it in the context of a story.
Kit. K. I. T. K.
This is 2 weeks old.
Kit.
2 weeks ago, this didn't exist. And you can buy
Get
it
up,
for $4.
lad. Get up,
per
Kit.
book.
Cat.
So how are you going to deal with the fact that parents can go to put this on their $220 iPod Touch, spend $5 on this app, and have this sort of experience?
Cat.
What app is that?
This is called the Bob Books. Right there. Bob Books. And you can actually download it free. There's a free one. All right. Boy, there's so much to show you. Encore? No. Okay. All right. No, I'll give you an encore. Here's your encore. Thank you guys so much for getting this webcam set up. The technical people here were incredible. And I've never had it so nice. But I've been trying to deal with all this change, and one way to deal with it was I wrote a letter to my grandmother, who passed away in 1991. So I was thinking about, since 91, all the things she's missed. So this is the letter. So, Grandma, you'd better have a seat. The president is an African American. I think that one right there would have blown her right out the front window of her Brooklyn apartment, and she with joy. I mean, I think the profound changes that have happened in our culture. You can buy coffee with a credit card, and anything with a credit card. You'd love the checkout counters. They use lasers. Some don't even have clerks. You think about this is just since 1991. Wikipedia is the Encyclopedia Britannica now. We use search engines just for everything. And there's this thing called Google. It's a Swiss Army knife for your curiosity. I even found your recipe for Himmeltort in Google. Bill Gates, he's the new Rockefeller, and this kid named Steve Jobs is the new Henry Ford because he figured out how to do music players and digitize phones. And the phones are called smartphones now. You can still dial the number, but they don't have dials or dial tones or wires. And teams want them more than oxygen. This smartphone thing, if there's one thing, Grandma, I could show you, it would be this smartphone. You can wrap your fingers around it, but it's your compass, your calculator, it's your map. It lets you get to that Google thing I told you about. You can watch movies. It's your travel agent. And you remember those maps that you used to keep in your glove compartment? Today's cars, they have these GPS receivers and satellites that tell you where to drive. You and Grandpa would never have gotten in arguments. Mario's the new Mickey Mouse. Joysticks have been replaced by handheld controllers that track your hand motions, and some games have camera sensors that track your movements. So we have a lot to talk about, and with Patrick Suppies, and just love the talk this morning and hearing this. But his famous quote, in a few more years, and this was in the 60s, 1966, writing about the potential of computer-aided instruction, millions of school children will have the access of what Philip of Macedon's son Alexander enjoyed as a royal prerogative. The personal tutors, service of a tutor is well informed as response to Aristotle. And today we have Google. So we have it on an iPhone. So your test, because I used to be a teacher, do you think there will be less demand for children's authors in the future? True or false? So something to talk about over lunch. And do you think print books, ink on paper, will go away? And I think those are some big questions to which there are no answers. So thank you, and I'm willing to stick around. I don't want to get in the way of the schedule. And I also have, as many of you discovered, I have no problem sharing my apps, so we can play some more. Thank you very much.